very good day to you, Sarah, Anane, and everyone out there watching. Thank you very much for joining me here on the chat box session. And today, I'm going to continue my cross session by discussing the topic, does familiarity truly breed or bring about contempt? And I'm very glad that I've gotten one of the youths today to come and help me do justice to this topic. So regarding the topic, I will start by asking this question. Sarah, when we say familiarity breeds contempt, what comes to mind? What is the idea people normally get or have when the phrase or the saying is just being mentioned?
Okay, so usually when familiarity breeds contempt, they usually refer to like if you have a very close relationship with someone or you've known somebody for a very long time, there is that tendency to, at one point in time, invalidate like the person's feelings or probably treat the person in a manner that you wouldn't treat somebody else, because then you believe that you have that relationship with the person, so the person shouldn't take offense at something that you've probably done to the person, or the person should just understand that this is how you are or something like that. That's what usually comes to the mind when you say familiarity breeds contempt. But that's what I believe comes to when you say that.
I see. In your own words. Okay, so considering the definition you've actually given, maybe from the concept you gave about the saying, what comes to mind? Could you give a clear definition of familiarity and contempt? Could you give the differences, like the definition? What's the differences between the two, like in terms of definition, actually?
Okay. So then, I sought for a dictionary definition of what familiarity was, and it says that this is according to Merriam-Webster dictionary. It defines familiarity as a state of a close relationship, that's intimacy or close acquaintance with something. And then it defines contempt as the feeling that a person or a thing is worthless or beneath consideration, or having disregard for something that should be considered. So that's the dictionary definition of what familiarity and contempt is. So then the differences is that familiarity is being close to something or being intimate with someone or something. And then contempt is disregarding something that should be considered or someone that should be considered. So yeah.
Wow, interesting. Nice definition. I'll then go on to ask my next question, which is, does familiarity truly breed contempt, as the saying goes? What do you have to say in your own opinion?
Honestly, I don't think it does, because then children are familiar with their parents. They've known their parents since birth. And at one point or time in the other, okay, there are times where, like during the teenage or the formative years, you become a bit rebellious and you tend to put up certain characters in front of them. But that phase passes. And when it does pass and you finally grow and become an adult, you don't disregard your parents. I don't know if you understand what I'm saying. As in,
yes,
the closest type of intimacy is between a parent and their child. And at one point or time in the other, there is no form of contempt. So I honestly don't feel that this definition applies to every situation. It's not an umbrella phrase that should be used for every situation, because then it doesn't always happen in that regard. And honestly, the fact that you are close to someone, or the fact that you've been intimate with somebody for a very long time, does not give you the right to be disrespectful towards a person. Okay, so as I was saying, I don't believe that the term familiarity breeds contempt is entirely true, because then in the case of a parent and a child, you don't see, as I said, during the formative years, there are points in time where you see some sort of rebellion and hate and anger from the child towards the parents, but this does not continue throughout the child's entire life. So then I believe that the term familiarity breeds contempt only comes true, or is only seen where at the initial stages of this relationship with the person, or I don't know, however you like to call it. If the initial stages, there is this sort of hate or anger towards the person, or jealousy or bitterness, that is
Really?
when maybe contempt will come in.
Oh, okay.
That's what I honestly believe. But then it doesn't go to say that because I'm close to you, because we've had this relationship, so at a point in time I'll start disrespecting you, or I'll disregard what you say. But if from the initial stages you've already been treating this person with some sort of anger or hate or something, eventually, yes, it will lead to contempt, because then that is what the relationship is founded on in some sort, or that's what the relationship is surrounded with. But then
Okay.
if that is not the situation, then this term won't come true, or is not true.
Um, you know, you were around yesterday to observe with my other colleagues when we're talking about this topic, and I made mention of the fact that actually yesterday, before I started having the conversation with them, I told them I checked an article, and the article done by certain Michael Norton from Harvard says psychologists say as you get to know people over time, should I say, they become distant, if for lack of a proper context. This is how best I could frame it. But if you could get the message of what I'm trying to say, that's what he tried to put across. And my colleagues yesterday also further said that it's also the reason why bosses don't really interact with their subordinates or members, because they do not want to lose the respect of their colleagues or subordinates at the workplace over time. But in contrast to that, you are telling me yes, it's not entirely. So looking at this situation, what do you have to say about that? Do you think it applies here?
Okay, so honestly, I believe that with the employee-employer situation, or the subordinate and the boss situation, obviously there have been no studies that show that it's good if the boss is a bit familiar with his subordinates. Others to disagree and say what you are saying, that if they are familiar with them, there's a point in time where they will lose respect for them and everything. And I honestly believe that it all comes down to balance. It all comes down to balance and establishing the type of relationship that you are in. Because then, if you are in an employee-employer situation, there's a sort of relationship that should exist. It shouldn't cross beyond a certain limit. And in this relationship, it requires a sort of respect. And then respect is reciprocal. You don't expect to not respect your employees, and then you expect them to respect you back. It doesn't work like that. But then it shouldn't also mean that you should be too familiar with them to the extent that they don't even see you as the boss that you are. There should be some sort of balance, because we are all human. So we should show love and respect towards each other. If the employee's family member is sick, you can inquire. but then it shouldn't go beyond a certain limit where they lose sight of that sort of superior relationship that they should have with you. So that's what I honestly believe. And then with what you were saying with regards to the study of what the psychologist said, I believe that yes, at a point in time, you become distant, but then it takes you being intentional about the whole relationship thing. It could be with your friend, it could be with your parents. If you're about it, you make sure that like maybe yes, as time goes on, you will grow, you will meet new people. But if you're intentional about the relationship that you have, it won't lead to that. And then it also comes down to respecting and knowing your boundaries. I honestly believe that if you respect someone and you know the boundaries and you know the type of relationship that you have with the person, you know what is expected of you and you know what the person should do in return. So that is where I don't know the line is. That is where there should be a line. That's what I believe.
Wow, interesting. Interesting contribution there from you. I can see yours is pretty straightforward. I would go on by asking, do you think there are any causes, anything, any factors that should I say promote familiarity? Is there anything that causes or promotes familiarity?
As in, like anything that causes familiarity to breed
Yes.
contempt.
Yes.
Yes. So as I said earlier, if the relationship is initially surrounded by hate or anger or bitterness towards somebody or towards the other person, it will definitely breed contempt. And if secondly there is a show of disrespect because you don't disrespect somebody and expect to be respected back, obviously that is where the contempt will come in. And will also come down to if the person who is showing the contempt or lack of consideration towards the other person genuinely does not care about the other person or genuinely doesn't care about the relationship you have with the other person. Because yes, there are times where things will happen and then maybe things will happen with your sister and you expect that, oh, because it's your sister should think like this or your sister should act that way in your favor. But then looking at it objectively, you are at fault. So then your sister should do that to you. But then you believe that, oh, because of the relationship we have, this shouldn't be done. Or why would you treat me like? So then you should also know the type of relationship you have. And then if you are not genuine to the person, it will also cause this. And if your own actions cause that sort of reaction, then you shouldn't be surprised. So then I'll say, so the first thing I'm talking about is if the relationship is surrounded with bitterness or anger.
Yes.
And then secondly, if there's disrespect. And thirdly, if the person or the persons in that relationship don't value the relationship that they genuinely have. And then probably, I don't think I'll have any other. I think that's all I have.
Anyway, before I move on to some of the positive sides of familiarity, I would like to ask this. There was a saying I heard from someone that familiarity makes your colleagues or friends unaccountable sometimes, like we said with a scenario with your sister. Is that true? That person precisely said that is the reason why he or she decides not to have friends, because friends are problems.
Yes, so I totally understand where the person is coming from, because then there's a sense of I don't need to explain my actions to you. You know who I am, you should know what I do and things like that. But then we should also understand that we are all not perfect. So definitely at one point or time in another, you will do something that will offend the other person and you expect the other person to understand or you expect the other person to not expect an apology from you because then you are friends. So it all comes down to you being intentional about it. And if the other person brings it to your notice, you definitely have to take account of it and try to resolve the situation and move past it. But you don't always just have to generally assume that you are my friend, you are my sister, you understand me, it's fine, I don't need to do this. Because, as I said, respect should come in. So what your friend is saying about what the person is saying about not having friends, I totally disagree with the person, because the saying goes that we are not an island. So we definitely need people around us. But then if those people are probably doing things which we don't like, we obviously have to bring it to their attention that, oh, you are crossing the line. And that I know we are friends, but then there are certain things that I wouldn't like you to do. And if you do those things, I expect that you apologize to me or you show some sort of remorse. So yeah, that's what I think.
Wow. Thank you very much there for that interesting contribution. In regards to what you're saying, I was thinking it was the opposite anyway. But anyway, it's a discussion. Oh, it's nice to get people's uh, views and perspective across the board. It's really interesting. Moving on, do you think there are negative sides of familiarity?
Yes, yes. The
I know
first one being
I know you've just like, should I say, we've talked about it briefly earlier on, but just to highlight on it now.
yes. So obviously the first thing is contempt, because as time goes on, as you were saying, wait. With regards to what you were saying, I want to comment about it. You were saying that at the initial stages, when you meet somebody, you are very conscious of the way you act around the person. But as time goes on, you do certain things unconsciously. So yes, you do certain things unconsciously, but then as you are doing it, you have it at the back of your mind. There's a little voice at the back of your mind that tells you that, oh, it's fine, because we have reached this point or this stage in our relationship. So it's fine if I do this to the other person. Do you understand? So then when your mind registers that, oh, because I'm close to this person, it's fine, that's when I see that it becomes intentional. So it's unintentional, but then the fact that you know that the person, like, nothing will happen, or because of the sort of relationship we have, is going to be fine, that is when it becomes intentional. Like, you don't have to outrightly say that this and this, but the fact that you've thought of it, or as you are doing it, something tells you that, oh, no problem, we are close.
It,
Do you
it,
understand me? That's why I feel that it's intentional to some extent. Do you get me?
yeah, wait. You know, before we close the chapter on this one, I know. You also think that because maybe because, let's say, for example, we are very familiar, and maybe I worry you a lot, but because I did it to you a few times, you did not respond. I take it as it's a normal thing we do. So it becomes something that now I deliberately do to you, even though it offends you. Maybe it gets to a point it might offend you. I know it's a bit wrong, but I've also normalized it. You think the other party is also responsible, plays a part
Oh
in?
yes, definitely. Definitely. That's why it's always the two sides. So then you should obviously, like, at the initial stages, you are completely fine with it. But as time goes on, it becomes more maybe aggressive or more spontaneous, and you are not comfortable with that.
Yeah.
Obviously, you both have sort of established an unspoken rule or something between the two of you, because he does say you don't say anything. So then there's an unspoken something. But then when it begins to hurt you, obviously you have to speak up and say to the person that, oh, I know we've been doing this and it's fun, but right now it's getting too much, or I don't like it anymore, so let's stop it. But then if you don't stop it, you don't expect the person to magically think that you become displeased with that, because then as you said, initially you were fine with it. So when it changes, you have to let the person know. You don't just have to assume that the person will know. But then there are also times where you should also assume and see. You, the person doing it, you should see, because the person won't say, but then the person's action may show that the person isn't pleased with it. You don't just have to ignore it. So it's a two-way thing.
Okay, I think we can now close the chapter on that one. Just
Yeah.
to summarize. So you said
Yeah, so then I was saying that contempt causes it. And also the second thing is probably disrespect. That if you become so familiar with somebody, you tend to not give that person the kind of respect that person deserves. Because let's say, for instance, my sister and I probably should tell me to do something, but then in my mind I'm like, oh Amanda, like how can we do this? How can you tell me to do this? Because this. So then that disrespect sort of comes in. That's when that's when you're talking about the boss and subordinate issue. That is when it comes in, when it's like you become so familiar to the extent that certain boundaries are broken and everybody thinks it's okay, but it's really not okay. And then probably the third thing would be I feel like contempt and disrespect covers, there are two, like they are an umbrella that covers everything else under it. So I think that's fine.
for the negative side of familiarity.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. So we also have the third thing. We can also have bias, because then obviously we are all biased towards people that we know, or towards things that we know or care about. So that happens. So that's where we are talking about nepotism at the workplace, or even discrimination or favoritism in school, in class, in decision making, or just because you know the person. Okay, sometimes genuinely we know, like, let's say your friend is a good carpenter, so you recommend the person, or either something to be done, you definitely call the person first because you genuinely believe that the person can do it. But then the person might not always be qualified, or might not always be the best fit, but you believe the person can do it, so then you definitely put the person there. So that's when nepotism comes in. But I feel like some nepotism is unintentional.
Okay, but with that, the only difference, that the only thing that stands out in that situation is if the person is qualified, like you said, the person has the capabilities to do whatever rules that you feel you can that can be entrusted in that person. So to me, recommendation, it's normal. You can recommend someone you don't really know very well. I mean that's the essence of recommendations. To
yes. To recommend somebody, exactly.